Hello, I am INSANIRE Constantine. Please allow me to introduce myself. This is my story, and it is one that is strange, but it happened. I call it the beginning. In the beginning, I was in a black void, and I was starting to become more aware of myself. I didn't know what I was just yet, but I would become more aware of myself. So I'm looking at myself and realize that I'm a spirit or a soul, and I'm in this place that's a black void. I'm looking around, and all I see is eternal darkness. It just stretched on and on, no matter which direction I looked. There was no sense of time, or sickness, or death in this place. You are simply just raw being, a spirit. You have no religion, no identity, just pure spirit. And so I would look around at my hands, if you can call it that, my arms, and I was like this glowing, dull glowing spirit being. As I became more aware, or consciously aware of my being, I'm looking around in this dark place, the void, the nothing. And as I'm doing this, from the corner of my eye, I see a shining bright white light, and it's getting closer. It's just coming right out of the darkness. And a voice told me, or called out to me, do not look my way. You cannot look at me just yet. And it's the shining being, the shining one as I call it, approaching me from the corner of my eye. Now this shining one, I cannot describe the voice other than to say that the voice was that of a male and female. It's hard to explain that. So I was able to eventually turn to look at the shining one, and even in my spirit form, this shining being was so bright that I would kind of like bring my spiritual form or hands up to my eyes, and then eventually I didn't have to do that. Well, this shining one started talking with me, telling me about things. I was told about a former life that I had lived, and it is one that wasn't quite pleasant. So excuse me for not talking about it, because I don't know if it's true or not. I'll explain later my feelings about this shining one and the other being that I met before coming into this world. So the shining one told me that I can choose my parents. And yet it seemed like I really didn't get to choose my parents. I also had questions because I'm more consciously aware now that my spirit, my soul is mindfully awake. So I wanted to ask questions, but the spirit being said I was going to be going into the world. I forgot the name that she had, this shining one had for the earth. So I'll just let that be. Well, the Shining One told me I would be going into the world and that my purpose in life would be to help others and to save people. But at the same time, I would live a life of suffering, which I didn't understand why that would be. Why do I have to suffer? Yet knowingly go into the world knowing that's what my supposed fate, my destiny is going to be. And let alone who are these people that the Shining One's talking about. It was at this moment that the Shining One pointed to an area in this black void. And I looked over, and a pin dot prick, it started out just from a pin dot of light appeared, but it expanded outwards into a perfect circle. The rim was glowing white light, and I was told to go up to it and look. And so I did. I could see the stars and the earth. It was beautiful. And the Shining One came up to me and pointed at the earth and told me that's where people live. That would be going into the world to help people out and live this life of suffering. Yet I did not want to go. I kind of tried to inform the Shining One that I didn't want to go. I was like, hey, do I have to go? I felt forced to incarnate or to come into the world of material matter. I didn't want to go. I was told about some terrible things, but that would be in this world to help people out and stuff and live a life of suffering, in which I did and somewhat still continue to do. So the Shining One, after telling me all this, started to leave, but I didn't have my questions answered. But the Shining One had left, which I thought was rude. Wasn't very helpful at all. So I stood there looking into this portal or circle of light. I'm looking at the stars and the earth. I'm just standing there. Now, like I said, there's no time in this black void. So for however long I was standing there looking at the earth, it could have been an easy 100 years have already passed by in the material world of the earth and stars. So I could have been standing there for what seemed just like a few minutes in the black void. Could have been 100 years gone by easily on earth. But I decided to lean out. I leaned into the circle and I looked up and outwards to see what was on the other side of this circle of light. And I'm seeing nothing but stars all around the circle. It was really strange. That's why I call it a portal. Perhaps a doorway of interdimensional qualities. So I leaned back inside and I started walking away from this portal because I was like thinking, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to enter it and go into the world. That's when I had turned around to start walking away. I seen the other being. It was a reptilian man. Arms, legs, upper chest, feet, hands, head. Very muscular, but his body was covered in scales. It was like reptile. Reptilian man. And he was scary looking, so I dropped down and I was fearful. So I dropped down in fear. I cowered down. but the being just stood there. So I rose back up to where I was standing. I don't remember if the being ever said anything, but he just stood there and stared. He had a blackish, somewhat gray scales covering his entire body. So I turned back to look at the portal, thinking I had no choice but to enter. There it was, the earth and stars. I looked back and the being was gone. That reptilian man was nowhere to be seen, and it was nothing but black void. Just nothing. So looking back into the portal at the world of material matter, I notice when I'm close to the portal that I was starting to experience emotions and more thoughts. Whereas when I first became aware of my spirit being, I didn't have any of that. So there's something about the material world where we have emotions and the capabilities to think, to have intelligence. And yet I didn't want to go down there into the earth. Like I said, I felt like I was being forced to. The decision was already made for me, and yet it was almost as if I was being told I had free will to think for myself. My life already planned and laid out for me. So I went through it. And now I find myself floating amongst the stars. Just floating. A spirit just floating among the stars. And now I'm like, now what? What am I to do? What's going to happen? So as I started thinking that, suddenly I feel myself being pulled towards the earth. Now, is there some kind of weird connection with gravity and being a spirit, a ghost, a soul? All I know is I started being pulled more towards the earth. Before I knew it, the stars started flashing past me, forming into a tunnel. Now I felt like I was a shooting star, but heading towards the earth. As I get closer, the stars were just flashing past me so fast it formed like white lines or streaks, but yet in a tunnel. Before I knew it, everything went black.
I have a memory that I can't explain. I've looked for logical explanations, but none seem satisfactory to me. It first came to me when I was a child in bits and pieces, until one evening when a flood of detail returned all at once. It was Christmas time, and I stood there in my living room, dimly lit by only the lights of the Christmas tree. I looked to the mantel, and then to our large, rectangular picture window. Many times the impression that this window should be an oval had entered my mind. I was confused about why it wasn't. Now when I looked to the picture window, it became an oval again. I was in my mind's eye. So I turned my gaze toward where our kitchen should be. This too triggered a memory. There was a larger, more cavernous space of some kind here. It was bright, an impression of a large crowd. They were waiting for something. Now I was among them. I was waiting for my turn. My turn came, and I felt a great anxiety. But I stepped through the doorway and found myself in this space with the oval window. This darker space was somewhat formless and sparsely decorated. There were other beings here, much larger than I was, and their shape was like that of humans. They were like pure energy, sparkling and flowing. A large planet loomed directly outside. One stepped forward. Very matter-of-factly, it raised one hand toward this planet, which I now recognized to be the Earth. "This is where you are going," it said. I was now very afraid.
"I don't like it there."
"But it is your mission." I became very upset, and he sensed this. "All right. Wait a moment." My guide walked over to his companions, who were of many varying colors. They stood in a circle and conferred with each other. I sensed no emotion from these beings. They were merely there to inform me. They felt like they were guides of some kind. "It has been taken care of. You must trust us and go." This is the entirety of what remains of this memory. When I was younger, I remembered great details of larger conversations. Every few years, the memory would resurface again, only foggier. I didn't want to lose it, so I began to tell people. And I also wrote it down. In around 2012, I finally searched the internet for pre-birth memories. Actually, I'd tried once or twice previously over the years, but never found anything. And this time, I found a very large archive. And I couldn't believe my eyes when a handful of them were almost perfectly similar to my own account. Sometimes these people were given a choice about what kind of life they could live, or who to be born to. I don't personally remember such choices anymore. Maybe they were there, maybe they weren't. I just remember I didn't want to go, and these guides arranged for a solution to make me feel more comfortable in my life. When I thought about it, the layout of my home, which my father had built some years earlier, resembled that space in many respects. It was as though they had instructed it to be built this way, so perhaps I would feel like I was in a familiar place when I was brought into this world. So what you've just seen and heard is a true account, as best as I can recall, of what I can only classify as a memory from a pre-mortal existence.
I remember being, I wouldn't call it a room, but in a place that had, it was dark for the most part, except for to the right of me was a very bright light. I was sitting, I believe, in front of what I would call a tunnel. If I looked down the tunnel, I knew that there was a life like this world. I almost want to say it's like a hospital, but I can't be sure. I remember sitting there and knowing that I have to go down this tunnel with this bright light to the right of me. The bright light was very loving, but very much an authoritative figure. I liken myself to about a human age of maybe 5 or 6. I remember being terrified. I did not want to leave there. I remember that I absolutely loved it and I didn't want to go. I also remember that I begged not to go. Through telepathy, there was no word spoken to this bright light. And this light very lovingly just made it known that I didn't have a choice. And I knew that deep down, that I knew there wasn't any getting out of it, any way of getting out of it. So I can feel it. I still feel it. I feel like I was just so afraid. But for whatever reason was involved, I did not have a choice. I knew then that I had a mother and a father. I didn't know much about my father. I knew that my mother was very gentle, loving, and kind. And I think that's one of the only things that I held on to very tightly while I was still there, that I just knew that she was just going to be a loving person. I also knew that I had a sister and brother. I didn't know much about them. The only thing that I knew was that they were older than me. Pretty much quite a bit older than me, in a sense. But that's it. That's what I knew about my life. And again, the last memory I have there was trying to get out of coming here, and it wasn't going to happen.
I have a memory of before I was born. When it was time to be born, I was like with a group of people, I mean, spirits, souls, whatever we were, I was with others. And we were getting ready to be born. We were getting ready to come down, and I remember I was like so excited. I was like way psyched. I was like, woohoo, I get to go. I was so happy, And I remembered that, I had been on Earth before. One time I remembered. I don't know if I can only say like the way I remembered and the things I was thinking of at that time. Because I remember, I don't have a big expansive memory of before I was born. I just remember this circumstance. And I remember being frustrated because the time that I was on Earth before, it was really boring, and I didn't get to do anything fun, and I was only a little girl. I died really young, and I was isolated. I don't know if I was from China or not, but I know I was a little fat Asian girl, and I wasn't allowed exercise, and I don't know if my feet were bound or something, but I couldn't exercise well. I couldn't run around or walk around or dance or whatever. So and I always had doctors coming and checking my feet. And the doctors told my family that they had to start letting me go outside and exercise more because I was getting too fat. So anyway, but I remember having a past life where I had been, a little Asian girl, and I died at a young age during some kind of a firestorm attack where there was like explosions going on all around me, and I ended up getting killed. All right, so I was getting ready to come down to Earth again, and I was really enthusiastic about it. I was so excited about it because I was like, this time it's going to be fun, and I'm going to do cool stuff. And I was like, I just couldn't wait to be born. But I was with this group of others who were also coming to be born, and I was definitely the most excited of everyone. Some of them were like really, really scared. Some of them were like dark and didn't want to go at all, and like they were frustrated about it, and some of them were just kind of like, okay, here we go, but not like me, man. I was like jumping up and down, and I was flying up in the trees, and I was supposed to be like staying with the group because we were going to like some, I don't know if it was like a processing center area or something like that. Okay, we were getting ready to go through like the process right before coming down to Earth, okay? And I was supposed to be with this group, but I was just like out of my mind joyful. And and we had like guides that were with us that were supposed to be like keeping track of us, and suddenly one of them came up to me and was like, they want to talk to you. And I was like, really? They want to talk to me? Like, specifically, individually, me? Like, really? Okay. And so we went to this place, and it's not like time the way it is here. It was like we went, and I waited till it was my turn, and then I went into this room, and there was like And I don't know, I always called them they, which is why it really freaked me out when I heard Dolores Cannon and she was talking about them. And like, okay, because it's like, I always thought all my life, I was like, is it God? Because it wasn't a he or a she, it was more like a them. So I was in this room and they were arrayed before me, above me, like I had to look up at them like this. And when they spoke, it was with one voice. And they were concerned. They were like, you need to take this more seriously. They were like, this could go very badly for you. And I was like, but it's gonna go so well for, I mean, like the good that I can do is just infinite, and I can't even believe this opportunity I'm being given to do so much good in this world. I was so excited, you know. And they were like, okay, but it could also go really bad. They were like, you know, and they explained some reasons why I can't specifically remember. And I was like, but you'll be there with me the whole time. And they were like, yeah, but it won't really be like that. You know, you won't, it's not going to be quite like we're there with you, you know. I mean, you know, I can't put it into words the way that they were reasoning with me. And I was like, fuck, I didn't come up with this. This was your idea. I just agreed to it, you know? So that's why sometimes people say that, like, volunteers that came to Earth that we, like, or like, you know, I guess I'm one of those, because apparently, I mean, I was in agreement. I agreed that I was going to come. It wasn't like somebody was forcing me. And others that were in the group when I was coming down, the others that were in the group, they weren't coming by choice. Some of them were being forced to, and those ones were like really agitated by my joy. And that's kind of, I think, why they separated me, because I was stressing people out. Or they weren't people yet, but, like, you know, they were stressed out and about my excitement, and that they were really scared and didn't want to come at all, and they were being forced. Or, you know, like they didn't have a choice. It's not like they were being forced, because they were walking. They weren't like in chains or anything. They weren't walking, but they were moving forward of their own volition. We weren't bodies. I don't know. I can't explain that part. But anyway, so sometimes I've heard stories of like that, oh, we chose our eye color and we chose our race and we chose our families and yada, yada, yada. And it wasn't like that for me, because I feel like that they had a specific course. It's kind of like when a director has a script written, and they say, you know, like they need people to fulfill each role. So like I volunteered to fulfill this particular role and to meet certain requirements that were needed to be met, and, you know, to do certain things that needed to be done. Like they had to have someone come and be me. And I agreed. I said, yes, I'll do that. And so like when I'm in front of them, I'm in this room and I'm in front of them, and I'm like, I didn't freaking, I'm trying not to swear in this video. Like, I didn't make this up. I didn't say I wanted to face these challenges. You offered this to me, and I just said, yes, I'll do it. And I was like, and that was when I said, and you'll be there with me the whole time. And when I said you'll be there with me the whole time, that was when they were like, okay. And then they like decided they were going to have a separate conversation away from me. So the guide that was guiding me said, okay, come here. We will wait for their decision. And we went off into a place. I mean, it was just darkness. I don't know how long I was there, but the guide was with me. And, I don't know how long it was that I was there waiting, because it wasn't like here where when they put you in a waiting room, you're like, dum, 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 and you're waiting and you're impatient and you just, you know, it wasn't like that. It was just, you know, existing. And then suddenly there was vision again, and I couldn't even understand what was said. Like, I couldn't understand what was said. I was there before them again, and they interacted with my guide, and it was very fast. And then my guide was like, okay, come on. And it was like really fast, that all of a sudden they were like, the guide was like, it's time to go. And I was like, what are we? And they were like, you're going. And I was like, I'm going? Okay. And then I just went. And the thing is that I never went back to the processing place. Like, I never went back to, like, I think that's why but I mean, now after the fact that I've thought about it a lot, and after knowing about Dolores Cannon and what she said, I came to this conclusion, and after that I stopped listening to her because I don't want to come to any more conclusions from the things she says. But my conclusion is that because I didn't go through the normal processing, that's why I remember that. That's my guess. That's why I remember the decision-making process and coming straight, because I came straight from that room with them to be born on Earth and be alive.